So before we get started today, I've got some bad news for everybody. It's on the co-host side. It's just me. I've been abandoned by all my friends. They. I don't know if they don't love me. I don't know what the deal is, but they're gone. I'm sure they'll be back sometime. Everybody, tweet at them, post at them to come back. But no, they're all doing good work. And so yeah, let's get into the episode.
What do they know? What does mean? How are they union and the socialist be? Everything I can need, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, oh what does mean? Oh what does mean? Oh what does mean? Oh what does mean?
All right, welcome back to Workers Lit, the podcast about fighting for the narrative. We're joined today by Nathan Evans Fox, an indie country artist and songwriter based out of Nashville, Tennessee. You might know him from songs such as Hillbilly Him. His new album, Heirloom, is dropping on May 29th of this year. And if you check out his website, he might just be playing at a spot near you. He stays on the move. But right this moment, he's not moving. He's here on the Workers Lit podcast. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I love talking the good stuff.
Yep, there we go. Um, I got that right? Heirloom is May 29th?
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked. You know it better than me at this point.
Well, I did my look. Well, I gotta say, to embarrass myself a little bit, you're on my Spotify Wrapped. I'm a genuine fan of your music. I really appreciate it. You were in my top 10 artists I listened to last year. So
Thank you.
so
It
yeah.
does really genuinely mean a lot. Like I know everybody's supposed to say that, but it's the truth. It still is weird to me that people bother. But I've had to accept that I'm a recession indicator, and and so I'm doing pretty good right now. Like Spam and white bread are flying off of the shelves, and
Yep.
it's a good time to be me, I guess. Bad time to be everybody else. I don't know.
We were
It's
joking
really
online
weird.
the other day. It's like it seems like niche left wing media and online gambling are the only two growth economies.
Right.
Um, that can't be
Yeah.
good.
What's the Kalshi over under on everybody that buys a copy of Capital also buying podcast mics?
Exactly. Well, cool. Well, it's before we go any further, I gave a little bit of a summary of who you are, and we're going to talk more about your art, what you do. But is there anything I left out that you really want to talk about, like just for folks who want to know who you are? And we'll link all your stuff below. But just like who are you? What do folks need to know
Yeah.
before we get talking more?
I guess a little bit of autobiography is also probably helpful for our conversation,
Do it.
so people know I'm not just a dummy who's making things up. I mean, I'm a dummy in a lot of ways, but there are a few things that I try pretty hard to be serious about. Yeah, I am from Western North Carolina, a little town that I like to say it in my shows, but it's truth. After the recession hit, we were ranked the number 5 most depressing place to live in the country 5 years in a row.
Wow.
The obvious joke is that we weren't even good at that. We also have the highest rate of kidney. Well, when I was there, and I don't know if this was just a wives' tale or what, but the wives are telling the truth on a lot of people. That we had the highest rate of kidney stones per capita between our hard water and all of the Mountain Dew. So that's
Yeah.
culture. But yeah, I mean, just like North Carolina is all textile mills, tobacco country, and all that stuff got regulated out of existence or got shipped overseas or whatever. So going home to like a small town didn't seem very viable. There weren't a lot of
Yeah.
options, and so I've spent a lot of time kind of wandering around. Um, I'm one of these funny folks that I'm starting music a little bit later. Like I've always played music, been playing my whole life, quite literally. But didn't get really serious about a music career until I was like later in my 20s, and even then kind of took some years off. But that's because I was trained as a hospital chaplain, so I spent 3 years in a very progressive seminary. It was not a Bible college. Did that, took a lot of training as a hospital chaplain, and did that on and off while I was in between touring. So that just means that I'm very well aware of the kinds of cultural scripts that we bring with us. The hospital chat, because a lot of people don't know, hospital chaplains, we're not like converting people on their deathbed. We're really there because illness and trauma and death tends to happen to all of us, and it's moments that are especially difficult. And so you're there just to support people in grief and loss and trauma, whatever their cultural norms and values are, whatever scripts they're bringing. In the Bible Belt, a lot of times that's Christianity, but also a lot of times it's not. And even
Yeah.
saying that in the Bible Belt, a lot of times it's Christianity, doesn't mean that they're bringing helpful scripts in. And also means that there's also a lot of hurt because maybe the scripts that they've inherited are like these really toxic Christian beliefs that they've only been hurt by, but that's all they have to rely on because that's kind of been the monoculture for them. So all that's to say, I've spent a lot of years seeing in very applied ways how our identities, how our social locations, how our cultural scripts, how politics and debt and incarceration, whether it be in the hospital or elsewhere, how all these things impact us on like a very fundamental day to day level. Impact the ways that we experience trauma and loss and grief. The ways that we deal with all these things, the ways that they're doled out, the ways that communities are prepared to respond to us. There's a lot of bias in all of these things. Um, so that's kind of where like a lot of even my music work comes in because I think about desire and feeling and grief and loss um, as things that are deeply integral into politics and kind of our norms and values and cultural scripts and our politics and our arrangements of power um, never go away, and they're part of our coping mechanisms, and they're part of the ways that we grieve, and they're part of the communities that we have access to as we grieve. They're part of the ways that grief, for a lot of people, when a child dies in a hospital, the shadow of their grief is that they spend the rest of their life paying off that medical debt. So grief
Yeah.
is something that becomes materialized and is like has a monetary value to it in a way too. So um, that's like kind of long and short of it for me.
In my novel that I wrote, they called her Rebel. It was a fantasy novel, but I wanted it to be grounded, so it kicked off with this character's journey doesn't get started by some grand, Gandalf bringing a ring. As much as we love that,
Yeah,
um, it gets kicked off with she is motivated to go on this quest because her dad dies and she is in significant medical debt. That's
yeah,
actually the reality that spurs most of us to our actions, to our politics. So
yeah.
I love to hear you say that.
Oh yeah,
I won't love the conditions. I love to hear you say that. I gotta ask you: are you familiar with Brian Recker at all? He's also North Carolina. North
uh,
Carolina.
so I like only online.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect everybody in North Carolina to have met each other, but
well,
but he's
you'd be surprised.
friend of the pod as well. We had him on to talk about Hellbent, so it just came to mind. There's some intersection there.
Yeah,
I actually thought of the idea to have you on when you were talking about. I believe is that tell me how you say it. Is it Afton Bain?
yeah,
Your representative.
yeah.
Yeah, Afton Bain race online. That was the 7th congressional district race in Tennessee.
Hmm.
Um, Republicans had to double up and throw hella money and support behind Matt Van Epps to get him over the finish line.
Bless his
They were
heart.
trying to do some kind of trying to do some kind of victory lap, and it's like you barely won in a place that you. I mean, I lived there for years. I was born in that district.
Yeah.
It should be a lot.
Some good context for folks too is that Nashville. So Nashville is like, I mean, take this however you want, but it's like one of the few blue cities in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And for folks who don't understand Tennessee, I mean, when we say it's Republican, like it's the scary kind. Like it's the
Oh yeah.
scariest kind. I've lived in the South an awful lot, and there are very few checks on the kind of like white wealthy panic that run this state. Unlike even other places I've been in the South.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Comparing it to Georgia, like Georgia is of course conservative, but it's a
no,
different ballgame.
it's nothing. And the state legislature a couple years ago gerrymandered the living hell out of Nashville. So the like we're all represented by these nuts who live an hour or two outside of our city. Um, Afton Bain wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be like a 30-some point loss because Afton ran a campaign in like one of the most absurdly gerrymandered districts. So that was part of the miracle was that
Right.
if they weren't starting at the 30-yard line, like they wouldn't have been able to get there. It was an incredible handicap that they were given, and it still didn't. they had to show a lot of cards and put a lot of money into it.
Oh yeah, and the reason that it kind of set off an alarm bell for me, not just because it was in that region, but because I saw one of the main fundraisers around the Matt Van Epps campaign was a guy by the name of Steve Berger. Now, Steve Berger, I don't know if you had ever heard of him prior to the conversation about this.
Not
Have you heard
really.
of Steve Berger? Okay, Steve Berger is the pastor that I had when I was in middle school and early high school when I lived when my family, I was born there. I moved to Georgia. I moved back. He ran Grace Chapel, was a church in Franklin, Tennessee, Bill Lee's church. Your opinions on Bill Lee are well documented in your song, Landlord Bill Lee, etc. Very, you can guess what kind of fella he was.
Hmm.
So I was like, Steve Berger. Now, this is a guy that got driven out of his church after like a million scandals
Of
and one
course.
happened.
Yeah.
You can look up. I mean, and no, like him being people online said it was because he was at January 6th. That was the bottom of the list of things that drove him out of the church.
That probably helped
Look up,
his standing at an
no, that
evangelical
didn't
church in
hurt him at
Franklin.
all. Yeah, Bill Lee did not give a shit about that. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. Look up, folks. The Grant Solomon and Aaron Solomon case, if you want to really look into some shit about what happened with Steve Berger, beyond the scope of this podcast, but it's some real true crime nightmare stuff. Regardless, I saw that he was back in the game and fundraising for Matt Van Epp, so I went looking into it. All right. I found out that Steve Berger now, he founded an organization that's called, let's see, Ambassador Services International, and with money from a number of car dealers in Tennessee, used car dealership guys, bought a $3.7 million house in Washington, D.C., 6 bedrooms, and is now the landlord of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson.
I love that you hit all of the the scammer tropes. He's a defamed pastor who de facto unionized the used car dealerships to be the landlord for the bigwig politician. That's incredible.
Oh yeah,
that's some chat GPT level on the noseness.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, landlord is in quotes. We don't know what he's paying, but I guarantee you Mike Johnson's getting a sweetheart deal.
Oh, yeah.
Staying in this spot. And Steve Berger apparently lives there like half the time too. So they're, I don't know.
Great.
They're sharing a Netflix account or whatever.
I'm happy for everyone involved.
But the reason I wanted to raise that is, this whole episode isn't about harping on my old weirdo pastor, but the kind of the point of raising that is Steve Berger represents, and he is one of the best speakers that I've ever heard in my life. There are a lot of these guys that are not particularly impressive, especially the second generation guys like Jerry Falwell Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these pastors do have the sauce. I mean, there's a reason that people listen to them.
Yeah.
The reason I raise that is these guys are, they're speaking the language of Christianity and boots and blue jeans and all that. I mean, you should hear Steve Berger's sermon. He's bringing in country music metaphors. He's talking about trucks. He's doing all this stuff.
Beautiful.
He's playing it all. If you've seen his house, he doesn't know a thing about it, but he's playing the hits like that. And he's tying it to this hyper conservative project, right? For example, he just 3 days ago in Nashville ran a conference called the Defending Western Culture Conference. And he's saying Christianity, and it's just a rah-rah kill Iranians conference, right?
Of course.
It's a Christianity is about crusades. It's it's that kind of thing, right? His MLK Day post, one was very much emphasized. He said, MLK, defender of the faith, and he would want us to bomb Iran. I'm not kidding. Go on his Instagram page.
I was going to guess that he was going to take it to Charlie Kirk, but
I haven't even looked what he said about Charlie Kirk. I'm sure it's real normal. So all that to say is, and he's got a podcast, Courageous Conversations, all that shit. I remember specifically being a queer kid in his church and him saying he wants to take a baseball bat to pride parades,
Jesus.
But all that to say, he's kind of this great example, this avatar of this Southern Christianity that's backed by serious money, that's in bed with politics, that knows guys like Donald Trump, that has this media sphere, this alternative media sphere that you're not going to hear about if you're not in it, but he's getting actually a lot of hits, he's getting a lot of attention I want to know, like, what is your experience with that side of Christianity, with that side
Yeah,
of Southern culture, and how do you, how do you square your music, which is very much steeped in our culture?
yeah.
I say our, 'cause it's my culture as well. I don't know. How are you squaring that circle, and what's the narrative war like there? I know that's a huge question, but
No,
that's kind of
it
what's in my
is.
head.
I wanna start remind me to come back to the religion thing if I don't, but I
Oh yeah,
honestly wanna start on the Franklin part.
let's do it.
I, I not to plug myself, but just so if for, like, to the 2 people that, are tracking my my canon, um, like, I want them to know I'm repeating myself, but look, I started a Substack a little while back. It's a way to make a little bit of money as a musician that, like, doesn't require me to be on the road, and it's been great for me because I have, like, too many thoughts. But one of the things I wrote about, because it really caught my attention.
Sorry, really quick. That's Nathan Evan Fox and Comrades, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah, thank you for
Cool.
even yeah, this was not a plug, but, it is a
No,
citation.
I'm doing it for you. You're
I
coming on the podcast. That's part of the deal,
I
dude.
appreciate it.
Believe me, when I go on people's shows, I'm like, and the podcast is Workers Lit, so I'm plugging. You don't have
Good,
to.
thank
So
you.
anyway, but
Um,
yeah, go ahead. I just wanted folks to know what that was.
yeah, I was thinking about the alternative halftime performance that we got a while back from the Turn and Point USA people.
Yeah,
And
really good.
the thing that struck me about that, I watched it on Pat Finnerty's stream, which, he's
Yeah,
hands down my favorite music influencer.
yeah.
He's great, and it was a safe way to watch it, so we didn't give extra numbers to the TPUSA folks.
Hmm.
But watching Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, I can't remember the other person's name, and then, Kid Rock. I'm familiar with all those folks.
Yeah.
They have reputations in Nashville. Lee Brice actually wrote a song that I've really liked for a long time. I was pretty disappointed in him. Um,
Hmm.
but like watching that halftime show and seeing the ways that they presented this as kind of like the all-American lineup, when in fact all those people are Nashville industry burnouts. And by Nashville industry burnouts, I really mean like Franklin's in
Yeah.
Williamson County. I call them Williamson County crash outs. Like, for folks who don't know that area, Franklin and kind of Williamson County, like there's cities like Brentwood who are kind of in that orbit, um, are super right wing havens, that like Franklin and Williamson County are suburbs of Nashville, so they have the kind of politics of white flight that you see in other southern cities, like you see in Mobile, you see in New Orleans, you see in Atlanta, you see in Richmond. So it's like it has an extractive relationship to like a larger, like a black and working class urban core, even though that's changing now with gentrification. Um, at the same time, it's also Franklin and Williamson County is one of the wealthiest counties in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it's this place of like tremendous wealth. Important Civil War battles were fought there. There's a lot of plantations there. Those plantations have not been reckoned with. They're used largely as wedding venues and places of recreation. So you even see the ways that like this kind of like cultural revolution never happened. Like there are places that Sherman should have burned down and he didn't. And if that man ever if I can ever resurrect him, I'm sending him straight to Franklin.
I'm a long time Benjamin Butler should have accepted the vice presidency head on this podcast. He was offered it and he was like, what would I do as vice president under Lincoln? I want to kill Confederates. Turns out,
That should have been done.
man, we needed you to accept it, but
No,
whatever.
that should have
History's
been
history.
done. That should have been, I might not be here, but it would have been worth it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like I I think about the kinds of cultural power. Like every major contemporary Christian artist that you know probably has a house in Williamson County. Almost every
Definitely.
major country musician you know probably has a house in Williamson County. And so there's this kind of like massive cultural sway that's actually really provincial. Like it's local to Williamson County and to Franklin. And part of it is that whole ecosystem of like plantations were never reckoned with, white flight suburbs. It's this kind of like pastoral landscape largely. So like it's this kind of idea of like a
Oh, it's
white
beautiful.
rural. It's
It's
beautiful.
a
Yeah.
beautiful place. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Leapers Fork
Oh,
for years. I don't know.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, gorgeous. And Leapers Fork's interesting because it's also got some really, really poor communities in it next
Hmm.
to that. Really nice.
Right.
I live no kidding. I lived in this tiny ratty house where me and my 5 siblings lived in the same room, and you could drive not 3 miles and get to Winona Ryder's house.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't get on the property. There was
Right.
a fence, but that's the kind of setup that you're looking at
It's
there.
I think like so there's so much I had somebody call Nashville right wing Hollywood, and what we're really talking about is the parts of Nashville that reflect Franklin and Williamson County
Yeah.
power, and it is a kind of like part of it is also this kind of cultural aesthetic that's a little like Yellowstoney. It's like America with the farms and and it's like and
Right.
like even the downtown's like deliberately cute and clean in a way that like clean cities are kind of sketchy because it's like where did all the people
Sure.
go? Um, so there's that part of it that I think about too when I hear this is the kinds of like just the location of like it's a very small place that has a lot of wealth and a lot of cultural power and pull, and part of that cultural power and pull is really like Gwen Shamblin's little weird cults there. So there's that.
Yeah.
The religion thing, I what's interesting to me is that I didn't grow up evangelical. I grew
Oh,
up with a
interesting.
lot of like charismatic things that have become
Okay.
mainline in evangelical. Yeah, it was interesting. Like a lot of like signs and wonders, speaking in tongues, all this kind of stuff. But we
What
inherited all of this.
denomination were you?
No denominations, and
Non-denominational.
not
Gotcha.
like the non-denom that you've got now, where it's secretly Southern Baptist funded. Like genuinely,
The I think the Tim Hawkins joke is non-denominational these days is Southern Baptist with a cool website.
right? Yeah, no, this was kind of like pretty anarchic, honestly.
Yeah,
It was more movement based than place based. So like we didn't really go to church a lot.
sure.
But we had a lot of like really intense home groups, and you go and you join internships and you go to this revival here and whatever. But a lot of what I inherited came through the imperial boomerang, or really like the missionary boomerang. So you get these folks who like are returning to the core from colonized countries. So you get folks from like India and Brazil, and they come to the U.S. and start these churches that bring like a lot of the cultural syncretisms from their places, um, and also are like, I mean, like I was going to these churches during the Bush era. I remember, talking about the Iran thing. I remember going to like a giant tent meeting where like people were getting healed and gold dust was appearing on people, and we're worshiping for 4 hours at a time and shouting and hollering on the floor, and in the middle of that service we're shouting George Bush is the burning bush, and 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 we're like praying for George Bush to invade Iraq, and I was like 14 and I was just like, yeah, this is it, because
Right,
you
exactly.
get all whipped into a frenzy, and that's your whole community and your whole world. And the religion thing is so fascinating also because a lot of the things that I grew up in that were really weird, like a lot of the tongue talking and the signs and wonders and the like hard right politics have been mainlined now. So like if you're evangelical now, you probably are talking in tongues and you probably are laying on hands a little bit more, and you probably are being a little more overt about your right wing politics and not being a little like worried about stepping on toes. Um, and so that's part of the thing that's been really interesting to me to see as well, is like in the same way that like the media landscape has had this rightward shift, like the religious landscape and the religious culture has also tended to do that, especially among white folks. I mean, it's all white theology, and you're seeing it. You're seeing white theology break out across racial lines, but it still is like beholden to imperial whiteness.
Yeah, no, that no, that's no great points all. And we've discussed on the show before and had guests on the show who've talked about the very intentional long-term organizing work that was done by the far right and done by the religious right
Hmm.
to try to tie these things together, the James Dobson types, the Heritage Foundation types.
Yeah.
The idea of it didn't happen by accident in
No.
the same way that us fixing things isn't going to happen by accident.
Right.
um these are very the cultural movements didn't just kind of explode into wherever. It was very intentionally
Yeah.
leaked in, and the work was done, and it was mainstreamed. It was a consistent thing. I mean, I grew up with all these like books that were being published that were trying to mainline this ideology.
Hmm.
Left Behind, we've covered on this podcast, we did a whole episode on it, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
right? And that, I think, a lot of the marriage between that more extreme charismatic stuff and the mainline evangelical, the respectable
Yeah.
evangelical, to the point now where there's so much overlap it's even hard to tell,
Right.
um, comes from a lot of that.
There's also one thing that I really like, I find important to say because I think it's a piece of context that a lot of people who haven't studied religion, um,
Yeah,
and I don't mean like theology, I mean like religion. People who haven't studied religion often miss is that most of the charismatic stuff that we have, period, but especially in the U.S., comes here through indigenous practices and through the West African practices
Yeah.
that somehow made it across the Middle Passage. We're talking about cultural practices that don't belong to the people who have misappropriated them, but also most importantly, we're there to provide a kind of like social and cultural function to give you resilience to make it through oppression. Like the movements of the body and the practices of talking in tongues and the kinds of community that come out of that were functions of resistance and resilience and practicing and like remembering liberation even if you couldn't achieve it right now. And what I find troubling in the ways that these things have become parts of, and I'm not saying that like that's the only way to find liberation, but that they're like those things were part of that tradition. What I find troubling is that these things have been now like grifted and used and uprooted and applied to the context of the people who were doing the enslaving, who were the ones making money off of the Middle Passage, and so there's this kind of like on like a kind of like almost like a spiritual level, like a level of like desire and affect and connection and community and resilience. And then the narratives that you start to tell yourself about like persecution and liberation, all of this, you see the people who are on the wrong side of the master slave dialectic using the tools of power and of resistance and of resilience, the things that make them like less fragile. And that's kind of, that's the thing that's kind of concerning. And it also ends up being a grift too. I mean, because then you start to be able to build communities with folks who like, I talked in tongues and stuff, and that got me into every kind of community you could imagine. So we would like, my family would be invited into like the Black Baptist church. We'd also be invited into like, the place where like we were the only like we were the only English speakers there. And we're also invited into like the white Pentecostal revival camp with the, the long denim skirts and the buns. Because even though there were significant differences in how we cared about like what freedom looked like and all of that, we all shared something important, which was talking in tongues. And that was like a thing that let us set aside probably more important conversations about like, are you eating today? What's your public housing looking like? Are the police coming at your door? All that kind of stuff.
There's an interesting correlation there between those cultural practices being taken and commodified or
Mm-hmm.
at the very least taken away
Yeah.
and appropriated, and the way that was done with music, the way that was
Mm-hmm.
done with a whole variety of different cultural
If you
practices,
if you've
things
seen
that are
Sinners,
useful.
there's a religious correlate. Like religion's included in
Exactly.
that.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen Sinners, go watch Sinners.
If you haven't seen
Uh,
Sinners, watch Sinners, and it will save you about like 5 years of studying the history of like music and
yeah.
art in the U.S.
Yeah, you have my permission to pause the podcast and go watch it. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that for most things. Um, that makes me think of the music. What is your history with
Mhm.
country music, and
Yeah.
what makes you? I mean, what makes you want to play it aside from the idea that you've got the ideas for this stuff, and how does it relate to this entire dynamic?
Yeah. I wrote about this a little bit recently too. Another plug. Um, I grew up. I've started to use the language because it's helpful, right? And it's a metaphor, so I use it lightly. But uh, the church was kind of like my official language, and country music was my mother tongue. Um,
Yeah,
and so, like country music was a thing that was always ambiently, it was just like in the ether growing up. It's on all the radio stations. There's bluegrass and country shows at every event you go to. My mom all used to, my favorite thing, wait, like my favorite way of explaining this is that I grew up on family land. My mom always just up the field. In the summertime, she would just fight wars with the birds to keep them from getting her blueberry bushes. And so one of the things that she would do is she would hang like little battery powered radios that she get at yard sales in like mountains of plastic bags and just leave the radio on to keep them out of the bushes. And so, like country music was literally in the air. And at the same time, I would sneak away in elementary school to listen to like Leanne Rhymes and George Strait and just like what was on kind of mainline country. And my mom would catch me and I'd get in like trouble for it because I was only allowed to listen to Christian music in an era where like
right.
the Christian music industry that you've pointed towards and like James Dobson and all that, like you could go to a Lifeway Christian bookstore and find a replacement for every kind of quote unquote secular culture you could find.
It wouldn't be good, but it would
Right.
exist.
And every once in a while though, like Audio Adrenaline, they
Oh
They
yeah,
were
there's
good.
it's got its moments.
Yeah.
I'd love for folks who are interested, go check out Worst of All Possible Worlds. Did a great episode on Christian music through the ages, especially really getting into the 80s, 90s, and early
Yeah.
2000s. A great primer on that if folks are interested.
There was so much slop, and also every once in a while you're like, "Yeah, I mean, broken clocks." Like, every once in a while it's gonna be good.
Every now and then, you'd hear Michael W. Smith hit that Secret Ambition chorus, and you're like, okay, there's something here.
Talk about another Williamson County crash out, Michael W.
Yep.
Smith. Um, yeah. So my relationship to music was, like, being really, really, really Christian and being really kind of separatist in the ways that I related to culture. Um, and I started playing violin/fiddle when I was 4, and all of that was happening I mean, I was taking lessons and stuff, but all the things that I was doing that wasn't just about getting my chops up was happening in churches. And, one day, if the university is still around, which I don't really care either way if it is or not, they'll be doing ethnographies about how, like, and histories about how, like, churches kept music alive in the US because no one would fund the arts. Like, it's a place where a lot of
Yeah.
people are able to, like, get chops and get practice and get experience without, like, judgment and having to, like, hyper perform.
Oh yeah, acting,
Yeah,
music, all kinds of different things.
yeah,
I mean, all forms of performance. I was growing up doing all kinds of plays and different stuff like that in church,
yeah.
that there was nowhere else to do that.
No, right. Like, where else are you gonna do that and be given the space to learn because people are gonna be more forgiving and accepting in a place where the point is just to catch a vibe and not to, like, have a, killer performance.
Right.
Um so that was kind of like my relationship to music. Um, at some point in college, I lost my religion, I gained it again, I lost it again.
Many such cases.
Yeah, I know, it's like such a just look at me,
Been there.
you could figure that out. Um, but at some point in college, I was trying to kind of still write the music that I knew, like the musical language that I knew. And I just, like, I kept forcing it and things didn't feel right and I would feel stuck. And I wrote 1 or 2 kind of like country, folk, Americana, like something that just felt like it was a little twangy and a little kind of standard in a way. And it felt right. Like, and it was
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like the amount of dissonance that I held with. I mean, it really symbolized, like, the amount of dissonance that I had held with my religion growing up, where it's like, I know that I can reach this fervor and all of this, but you gotta fight for it and fight for it and fight for it, and it requires all this vigilance, and then you realize that, like, all of that vigilance comes from fighting against your body, from your animality, from your creatureliness, from your mother tongue, from the cultural inheritance that's, like, actually yours, and
Yeah.
isn't you trying to, like, give something to someone who's trying to take it away. Um, and and so I've like come into my my mother tongue a little bit. Like, it feels like a reclamation project to get to play country music. And the thing that's interesting about that for me, I mean, there's obviously a lot. Um, but one of the things that's interesting about that is, like, I don't fit a certain patriotic country mold, because what I got from country music was never what I got from country music came too late for me to be the cool kid in high school. What I got from country
Yeah.
music, like, never got me clout, it got me peace. Like, it got me out of communities that were, like, white and patriotic. It didn't get me into them. So, like, I appreciate country music as a place where, like, I can have as much twang as I want. I never have to tamp it down. I get to play with it. I get to be kind of heathen, and yeah, and it's like it's a place where, like, religiosity is going to come in and out, but it's never the point. Like, it's never centralized. The point is that, like, uh you get to be a hillbilly for a little bit.
Speaking of hillbilly hymn,
Hillbilly, yeah. Now that's a
is the song.
segue.
Yeah, that's a song that I think I'm right in saying that's your biggest song by far, right? That's
Yeah,
certainly where I found you.
yeah.
Um,
That's how Brian Recker found me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Then when that went, well, when would that have been? What, a year ago
It was
when
it
that
was
video?
it was like April of last year.
April. So almost a year
Yeah,
since that kind of went semi-viral online. Folks haven't heard that song. You can listen to it. Maybe we'll stitch in a few seconds of it here.
yeah.
When the Lord comes back, ain't gonna be no cops. You can cook your own, you can smoke your crops. All the boys gonna wear the pretty things. When the Lord comes back, and gotta prove a thing. When the Lord comes back, I'm gonna drive real slow, gonna go wherever the Spirit goes, gonna dog pill and talk and cuss. Well, ain't no boss gonna make a fuss. When the Lord comes back, I'm gonna drive real slow. Well, every high place gonna be.
That's a song that, you know, to be vulnerable, the first time I heard it, I cried. Like, I really genuinely cried. And the first time you did it, it wasn't a fully produced, wasn't on Spotify or anything like that. It was just I just saw it on Instagram. It was you and a couple friends, I believe, were just singing it. And that's a song that, you know, one, it sounded like something that I loved to listen to when I was growing up, something that, you know, someone in my church might sing. But it was about an actually liberatory message, and not in a way that felt hokey, not in a way that felt forced or weird, or like, oh, we're gonna do a subversive thing. It didn't feel like you were trying to be subversive. It felt like you were just trying to be you.
Yeah.
Could you speak some about Hillbilly Hymn and what the process around that was and the reactions to it? I don't know if you expected it to kind of blow up when you uploaded that video, or what your thought process was around that, but that song was a big deal for me. It's one of my favorites from you still, though.
Thank you.
Bottleneck is probably
But
my top song.
Bottleneck's the one. Bottleneck is the one. I've started closing shows with it because I want people to latch on to that. But yeah, Hillbilly Hymns.
Bottleneck is just, if I could say, but real quick, Bottleneck's the song that I've got family that are still very evangelical, but Bottleneck's the song that I was like, all right, y'all got to listen to this though.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, this is heat.
It does have a light worship vibe to it too, so it kind of checks. Yeah. Hillbilly Hymn's funny. Like I wrote that song, like I just kind of piddled my way into that song, and I didn't put much work into writing it. Like I say that like I'm not. It sounds like a weird brag. It's really not.
No, it happens.
But I've reflected on it. Like sometimes some songs you work on. I got a song on this record I'm about to put out that took me 2.5 years to write. This song was like, I just kind of like noodled on like little things in between, like feeding my kid for lunch. Like it wasn't anything. And then I put it online as like, I was just like, this is my little bit of slop I'll put up, you know, because, you know, sometimes when you're making songs too, it's like, I don't know what's good anymore. I've heard so many songs. Sure. I live in Nashville. I'll put it up and see if it connects with people. And if it connects, then like, maybe I should keep writing it and see where it goes. Because I'm not one of these people that's like, I just write for me. I'm like, no, I'm writing because we're doing a thing together. And if I'm just out there doing some like, you know, navel gazing, I've kind of wasted everyone's time. It's funny, like I put it out there and it just took off, and I just didn't expect it to, and I didn't take it seriously for the first couple of days it was up, and then I saw people's reactions coming in, like, I'm crying at this, and I'm like, this silly song, and they're like, this means so much to me, and people started sharing, like, in the comment sections were sharing like their stories about like growing up in the church and where they are with that now. And I realized, and seeing people respond in that way really made me like take a step back from my like kind of nonchalantness about it. And I realized that like for me, that was a song that did take my full 36 years to write. Like I couldn't have imagined that song 4 years ago. I would have been horrified by that song at 14. And it's the kind of thing that like, it can only come out now in life. It can only come out, frank, with like some maturity, and some like having sat with people and seen the ways that like we really need Jubilee. Like I don't mean that on some like performative mess. I don't mean that on some like hyper religious dog whistle mess. Like the land needs to get back to some wildness. Like debts need to be forgiven. People need to understand what it's like to live beyond carcerality. Like men have got to get it right. like men have got to get on good footing with other people. And I think for me personally writing it, like I've come to be grateful for that song in a way that I wasn't, because it's a sign of like how much I've lived and frankly how much I've changed, how much I've given myself to like give up on who I was and to just like keep learning and like be account like let people give me the kindness of some really brutal truths about about what I'm saying and how I'm acting. And so yeah, so I'm grateful for that song and for the ways that it's connected to people because it ain't forced. Like Jubilee, I think, people are like the thing that trips me up about all this, when we talk about bombing Iran and things like that, is that these people think that the world has to end for us to get free, and that's just not the
Yeah.
truth. Like we have everything we need to get free. We have everything we
Yeah.
need. We have enough food. We have enough wealth, whatever that means. We have enough air to breathe. We've got enough kindness, like even as if like our personal virtue has anything to do with making sure that every belly's full. But like we've got what we need. We've just got to make it happen. And so part of that song was just imagining it in your vernacular. Like
Yeah.
I can't bring out the guillotines. I can't introduce
Yeah.
policy. I can't. But what I can do is make it very like clear and desirable and imaginable and plausible, how close Jubilee is.
Absolutely. And I'll say it again. I've said it. People, longtime listeners of the podcast, will get annoyed because I've said it 10 times. The rapture got made up like 100 years ago, y'all.
It is. It's,
The- I
yeah.
promise, Left Behind isn't a book of the Bible. You can't trigger getting to go to heaven. Sorry, whatever
No.
you believe about that. And if there's any antichrist, well, it, they're not living in Iran. I'll say that.
No.
Uh, Absolutely. There's a line specifically where you say, or a verse specifically in Hillbilly Hymn, where you says that Jesus could have already come a time or two. They killed him like they tend to do. I'm praying for the mighty to fall, else there ain't no use in prayer at all. And I think that's a thing that comes to my mind specifically as when you're saying Jubilee. It's not just a moment of Jesus is going to show up, snap the fingers, it's going to happen. I think
Mhm.
people on the left, even not religious people or people without religious history, like to talk about the revolution
Mhm.
as this moment, like the rapture, as
Yeah.
this like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just a thing that's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
Which it's not. It never has in all of history.
Mhm.
Things can be unexpected, but they're not worked for. Um, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about praying for the mighty to fall, or else there's no use in prayer at all. That for this moment of jubilee, for this moment of getting right with the land and with each other and with the world, and this country also getting right with the people it's wronged. I don't even know how we can begin to do that, but we have to.
I'm a big
Uh,
I'm a big reparations guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have to.
It's we literally have to, or we'll never be rid of these Confederates. Like it will just keep
Yeah.
spiraling.
Which, like, in the original like conception of a jubilee, the getting right with people, the forgiveness of debts, like that is a big part of this.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about all that, the South has been, and it always has been, such a site of struggle.
Mhm.
Such a site of struggle. Historically, I mean, you can talk about Martin Luther King Jr. You can
Mhm.
go back to Nat Turner.
Mhm.
To talk about as far back as you want, and it remains a site of struggle. I'm in here in Atlanta, where I mean, people shed blood fighting against Cop City here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
The work is being done all over the place. They're trying to build all these new data centers in the South primarily, and
Mhm.
that's where the site of struggle has been against that. In your communities and also just throughout the Southeast, what are you seeing as the kind of the emerging struggles, the struggles that you feel like people need to be plugging into? What are
Mhm.
you seeing both culturally and materially that are like playing out right now? What's pulling on your
Oof.
heartstrings?
I mean, what isn't? I feel
Right,
so.
right.
I was talking to a buddy, a friend who's visiting from Minneapolis right now, and we were just he works in the power grid. They live in Minneapolis. They've been dealing with the occupation up there.
Yeah,
Um, we're both really attuned to like climate change and climate weirding and all that stuff. And and I just realized how I've like narrowed my scope to what I'm paying attention to, out of just the need to like to start somewhere. I've been spending a lot of time. I'm trying to like kind of focus this year on getting musicians organized
hell yeah.
against Spotify, against AI, all those things. In part because all of that touches on data centers, it touches on workers' pay. Musicians were gig workers. Like like the symbol of the gig means a lot because there's a lot of folks in the underclass that are gig workers, even if they're not performing. So there's that for me. I the other thing is like, I'm not I wouldn't say I'm like an organizer. I'm not, a theorist. I'm a musician. And so um, I'm like a little intimidated by your question because I don't feel like I'm the right person to ask, but I can say
I
what's on
got
my
you.
plate. And
That's all we expect. You don't got to answer for everybody, just for you.
yeah, I mean, there's so many people who are doing great work, and I am not one of them. No, but like I think my job is to do the propaganda. Like, my job
Yeah.
is to um, pull apart the fantasies of nationalism and pull apart the fantasies of identity and of legibility in an age of like surveillance. And and so for me, so much of being a musician is recovering the history of like white Southern disloyalty, recovering a sense of the South that is not the Mason Dixon line, is not the Confederacy, is tracked instead by like where has okra been grown and eaten and cooked. Like that's a story worth telling. That's a story of the people who have built the South, not the people who have exploited it, and the people who have had to travel elsewhere. Because part of being Southern, frankly, is also a story of migration, because so much of it because of the conditions of privation that exist here, um, and so much of that for me is trying to let people hear in their accent. And I don't do this as like I also want to be clear, like I'm not doing this as like a putting a prompt into ChatGPT. Like I mean it. Like I don't sing things I don't mean. There are times that I've written things that feel a little bit like forced and a little algorithm baity or whatever, and I just delete them. Like I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
that was a writing exercise. Um, but like I want people to hear that like my accent doesn't mean my loyalty to the Stephen Bergers and to the Marsha Blackburns and to the Donald Trumps, and it doesn't mean loyalty to the people who are trying to put the like 10 people and their sycophants who are trying to fill every holler with a data center and ruin their water, and it also means that like I caring about keeping a data center out of my holler have more in common with Black folks in Memphis who are experiencing environmental racism because of the data centers that are being put in their neighborhoods, and so like
And hell, man, like, people want to divide up. I mean, my grandmother. I've got a grandmother in Memphis, and she's talking about her water in her toilets coming up brown.
right, right,
Like not the right shade of brown for for a plumbing issue. Like
right.
chemical, some weird shit going on. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not a scientist, but something's fucked.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, that's the story that it's important for me to tell. The story that, like,
Yeah,
I belong to people more than I belong to a flag, like, and there's a difference between being a person and a patriot, and just
yeah,
because I'm born here doesn't mean that I have to be loyal to the abusive family that I was born into, the abusive imperial family that I was born to. And so much of that for me is trying to work as a musician on the level of like desire and imagination, to make sure that we're attuned to the world that we want, and frankly, the world that has existed for a long time. There's a reason that all these right wingers are in our textbooks. Like there's a reason
yeah,
that it took me forever to know about the 6 men who were killed in Marion, North Carolina, right, like one county over from where I grew up, as part of a labor massacre. There's a reason
yeah,
that it took me most of my life to find out about the refuge or the fugitive communities in the Great Dismal Swamp. There's a reason that in the Tennessee textbooks you're not hearing about the coal wars, and you're not hearing about. I mean, East Tennessee didn't want nothing to do with the powerful, with the mill bosses, with the planter class, any of that. So, I think about all of that, and I feel like my job as a musician is to give people a sense of feeling, because feeling generates agency. It generates theory and our ability to think and all of that, because we have a sense of reality when we can feel something. So that's what I feel like my job is, and so then I try to kind of align with like, it's been weird since that song went viral. I get hit up by a lot of political stuff, and so then I have to have these conversations about like, do I align with like really progressive Dems who understand that like running in a third party won't get you anywhere in the
yeah.
South? Like, do I align? Like what do I do?
It's
How do
tough.
I
Yeah,
how do I keep a big tent but also still have some teeth to what I'm saying, and not just make people think I'm just like living out. I'm not your Jesse Wells, dude.
Yeah, for I think for us, it's a matter of what's moving the people, what's
Right.
getting people organized, what's getting material gains,
Hmm.
and if you can, and however you're accomplishing that, we're all for it.
Yeah.
I think, that's I don't consider that a cop out. People want to quote theory all day long. Like, I mean, you can go back to the 1880s, and you've literally got Friedrich Engels telling people, look, if joining the like British Labor Party is getting you material gains for the working class, then
Hmm.
you should do that. And if you need to break away, you break away. I mean, that's what the OGs said. That's not what
Yeah.
if you want to get real Marxist with
Yeah.
it. uh not that you have to, because like you also don't want to go in necessarily just preaching theory at random people. You want to actually get them what they need.
Yeah.
Organizing around these data centers has been this huge thing. I mean, we just had Rua Roman on the podcast. She unfortunately had to withdraw from the Georgia governor's race. This state has, between all the money that was getting thrown into the race, attacking her, uplifting her opponents, and also just the real issues with a Palestinian Muslim woman running in
Mm.
the state. She faced real challenges, but she also had a lot of real support, especially when she would talk to people about in rural areas about data centers,
Yeah.
talk to them about their water, talk to them about hospital closures.
Yeah.
I mean, this shit is
Come
real
on now.
material stuff
Yeah.
that we can deliver on. So,
It's
um, we got to talk about our history, yeah, and we got to talk about the issues facing us.
so many people are so accustomed to disenfranchisement, and this is the thing that, like, if I can do the classic leftist thing and talk a little bit of shit about libs for a quick for a quick
Do
second.
it.
Um, the reason that I cannot be mad at people based on how they vote now, and there's always some gray areas on the edges, but the reason that I can't just write somebody off is because we are so radically disenfranchised in the U.S. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think I don't think I can't believe in a myth of the U.S. where like power is distributed horizontally enough for us to be genuinely democratic. Most of
Right.
the things that determine our life, we can't even vote on. Those things happen in the workplace, and like for a lot of us, not even the workplace, just our inability to meet the bills, right? Like those things control our lives oftentimes more than the politics of it. Um, Tell me one of the two parties that like has actually not talked past you, or talked down to
Yeah.
you, or sold your jobs out from under you, or fallen through on. So I like, part of that to me is like the holler thing is like, I know this is real. I know this isn't bullshit. I know this isn't about like trying to get into somebody's fold so that they can send me, a text asking me for money. That's what enfranchisement looks like. And I think people respond to enfranchisement. I mean, I think that's part of the thing that's interesting about music, is that like music doesn't care. Like music's fun. Like it
Yeah.
gets you in with fun, not with fundraising, not with whatever. It's like, if you just like this sound, then you've got a place in it. You don't have to even agree with all the lyrics, right? But it gets you in because there's a kind of enfranchisement in it. There's a kind of sense that like you belong here even if we don't fit right. And I just think that, like, yeah. I think that's what people need. And I think that's when people are like, "Oh, you're real." It's like when people respond to people being real, what they actually respond to is people being included into the things that impact their life and not being sold a line about it.
Absolutely. As we're coming towards the end here, I wanted to ask, is there anything I have not asked about that you would love to talk about before I get into kind of the wrap up here?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm just yapping. I appreciate this.
No, you're doing great,
This has been
man.
great. I love meeting comrades too.
Absolutely.
It's always such a treat. We're out here. We're
Yeah.
out here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And and people, and I want to say too, like, people are out here, and also people are just waiting to hear it. I've shared this on the podcast before, but I'll say it again. My first job out of high school, I was working in a transmission plant in Fairburn, Georgia,
Mhm.
and this was 2017, and you had all these hardcore MAGA guys,
Mhm.
literally MAGA and Trump and Punisher stuff on their hard hats, and the folks that weren't were the Latino folks that worked with us,
Mhm.
mostly immigrants and a lot of them undocumented. And when ICE rolled up where we were working, all these guys that had talked a big storm about Trump and this, that, and the other immediately were willing to go and hide their coworkers and lie to ICE and say they'd never heard of those folks that they were looking for.
Yep.
And that's because that solidarity is going to outclass every time. So we just got to scale that up. We just got
Right.
to explain to those folks, okay, but what if we did that? What you just did there on a societal level? It's
The,
possible.
yes, I feel I say this all the time. I mean, I think this is half of my like stump speech when I introduce half my songs is like now, if you've got a high society grandma, that's different, but like the grandma I grew up next to, she inherited a lot of problematic things, but not
Sure.
a single one of them, and I mean this, not a single one of them was practiced at her table, right? Like
Yeah.
when it was the world out there, and I understand that this is different if you're, like I'm speaking from like a very racialized place as well, but like she knew how to practice it. She didn't know the language and she didn't know how to apply it to strangers. And what if you just think of a stranger as somebody that you just haven't met yet? Like they're a neighbor that hasn't moved in yet. Because it's we have it. So what's the thing that's interfering with the messaging? Like what's interfering with the ability to just be consistent about it? And that's where I think you have to realize that powerful people are selling you a load. Like they're selling you an awful lot of ideology, an awful lot of nonsense, and that when you get down to it, at the end of the day, I mean, we don't want bad things to happen to people. Most people that are worth their salt
Absolutely.
don't want bad things to happen to people, and they want people to be fed. And that's we just got to be consistent about it.
The friend of the show, Drew Mason, folks know him as the Dirt Mage online. He lives in northern Tennessee, and he said on this show that where he comes from, the most of the welfare was done by Meemaws,
Yeah.
his words, and he's like, and those same people would not necessarily vote the best way, but
Mhm.
let's just think they've got the capacity for this, they've got
Yep.
the capacity for something more. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Nathan, it has been fantastic to have you on. The album that is coming out is Heirloom. Is that available for pre-order now?
It is. Yeah. If I could, can I give a quick little thing for it, real quick?
Do it,
Okay.
please.
I became a dad. I lost a dad in the same year.
Mm,
And so this is a journey into like grief and all of that, and also thinking about what it means to raise a kid in Tennessee while there's school shootings going on, while they're taking away rights for queer people, while
yeah,
while I'm thinking about the state of the world that my child will inherit. So um, it's about it's deeply personal, and it is also deeply political. It's about sitting at the intersection of both.
absolutely. Well, Heirloom is available for pre-order. Also, check out if Nathan's coming to a town near you on a tour. He's coming to a town near me. Workers Lit fans, if you're, April, you can meet you can meet me if you live in the area, if you want to come to the Decatur show. I'll be there. I'll be paying attention to the music, but I'll be there. Uh and yeah, so we super appreciate you coming on the show. Feel
Thank you.
free to come back anytime. If you ever have a book you want to talk about, we do book episodes, so feel free to hit us up about that. And the links for everything are going to be in the show notes, so you can follow Nathan on social media, so you can pre-order the album, and check out the Substack as well. So one more time, Nathan, thank you for coming on Workers Lit, and you have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Pages upon pages, words of wisdom from other workers' brow. Got my nose to the spine, not soaking up all the wisdom of their will allow. The workers' tongue and stories, how we want to know every right we enjoy. Away from the lights, away from the noise, we can rebuild everything they destroy. Workers need our workers. Power of the union and the socialist dream. Everything I can get, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, oh the workers need. The more I get, oh the more I need. Head in the books, so my mind is free. Driving in with everyone in mind. I'm a mind, oh rally involved.